People are bringing up a recent jog that V had, and people are very concerned over his safety. People are talking about weapons being used to defend BTS, as well as a new update on the recent investigation and police activity. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave Disci. Let's get into it. There's recently been a little bit of an update on the whole situation with Bang. What I thought was initially really interesting was that there was this ongoing investigation with him, and they just did one round of investigation, and apparently that wasn't enough. And that led into the investigation that we all know, where he showed up at the police headquarters. Authorities are saying this case is extremely complicated, so likely even if we do come to a verdict, it allegedly could probably be more of a gray area rather than it being a clearly defined who's right, who's wrong type of thing. At least that's my assumption. I don't know if that's true at all. Now, this took a really serious turn as Bang is not allowed to fly right now. He is currently on a travel ban, and typically courts or authorities do this when they feel like the traveling is what's stopping Bang from appearing in court or potentially stopping the investigation from moving forward. And while this sounds totally fine, it is definitely not good news. Stopping his ability to be mobile is extremely harmful to any artist in that label right now. And yes, that includes BTS, since they're on their way to have a comeback soon. Right now, there are several types of dealings that are expected to happen with the label, and especially right now in America. So Bang not being able to come to America and meet those people and make those deals is very harmful to the company. So he will not be able to expand the company around this time. He will not be able to make new deals, and he would not be able to help with a lot of the expansion that might be needed for several artists. For example, if they want to collaborate with an American label, that's going to be Bang coming out and talking to the head of that label and working out a deal. This is important because obviously we want BTS to make their comeback back in the US, and we want it to be a really big one. And obviously the label has their US connections already, but they are not that established in the US yet, and they likely would still need Bang to come out and make those deals. But perhaps there would be someone who will play interim whatever executive role that Bang has and kind of step in for that. Just a temporary role, Bang will essentially step back, and once he's able to step back in, he will resume that role. And I think this is probably going to be the best way to do things right now, and hopefully that person that steps in is a good fit and can still help expand the company. I am, of course, mostly worried about BTS and the various other groups that are under the label right now and what they will be able to do or won't be able to do. Everyone acts like the label is not the underdog, as if they have all the resources and the connections, but the bottom line is they still don't. And a lot of the connections that they build with specific artists, that relationship might only exist for that one artist, if that makes sense. So for example, if JK were to be on an American talk show that's really popular, that doesn't mean that now the entire label and all the artists have that connection. The entire label might be able to still email that talk show, but that talk show might only want JK and not care about the other artists. And that's the issue that the community has all the time, which is that the label doesn't promote all the artists the same, and it'll be really difficult to provide those connections even more if executives can't expand the company. I mean, there's a lot of people who say pretty nasty things online, with a lot of people now threatening to use weapons to attack anyone who really says any of these awful things about BTS or any particular member. I definitely don't condone some of the nasty things that are being said. In fact, this is often what I talk about here on this channel. I definitely do not condone the use of weapons when trying to target or talk about trying to target people who say these things. I typically advise psychological help or therapy. The Kpop community tends to lean towards liberal, and they've always tried to lean more towards liberal. And to some people, it seems to only be that way when it's convenient. Because no person that's on the liberal side in the US is going to condone gun violence towards anybody. In fact, a lot of what liberals have been fighting for many years is gun control. So comments like this set back the entire community quite a bit, and I would prefer if people don't use language like this, because this is not what anyone has been fighting for. And quite frankly, whatever side you're on, they will probably sit there and agree that no one should be shot or killed for something that they say. Now, one particular user talked about how V needs to be canceled, and I guess particularly talking about him allegedly being a Zionist, right? Accusations of him being a Zionist apparently is enough to have people want to kill them. I don't know. And these accusations and what's going on is never very clearly black and white, and definitely not how we tend to make it out to be. If you believe one aspect of something that might put you into Zionism, does that mean that you fall into that category, or you believe that one nuanced thing and you don't believe everything else? If you are someone who can't afford healthy foods, and the only types of foods that you can afford are unhealthy ones, frozen foods or fast foods, and you tend to eat from McDonald's and various other fast food restaurants, are you now part of Zionist culture, even if you don't believe in everything else that they represent or are accused of representing. And this isn't to say that V has particularly shown any signs of that. I personally believe there has not been any clear definition of him supporting any particular political side of this situation that's going on. My point here is, just because you see one or two things from either side does not mean that one person is on either side. It means that people are nuanced. People have reasons for what they do and why they do certain things. Business and culture and brands are so embedded into culture here in the US, it's very difficult to live without any of those things. I mean, if we're making accusations and protesting even music that we listen to, you would not be able to listen to 95% of songs that are already out there. Because according to some people on the internet, just being Jewish is Zionism. And like 90% of the industry, especially in the US, is all Jewish people. So these accusations never make a lot of sense to me, and to threaten to hurt someone based on that, rather than just explaining things and really giving your thoughts on why a certain belief might be wrong, I don't believe that that's the correct approach. People often say that they don't feel like explaining things anymore to people, and that they often will come back or snap back at someone saying, you can just Google it. I don't think this is the right approach. I really don't. People aren't going to Google it. They're going to believe what they're going to believe. The difference is, if you have the ability to explain things to someone, and if someone is there to listen, help them see a different perspective, you should take the opportunity to do it. Now, this is of course considering these people have the bandwidth to do it, the ones preaching, I suppose. And I'm assuming a lot of people do, because they are sitting online tweeting at people and talking about it. So they do have some bandwidth to talk about things. And yes, just talking about one person privately or even online really isn't going to change anything. But if every single person adapts to this mindset of just telling people to Google it, and the other person clearly isn't going to do that, then you're going to have half the country literally doing what they currently do. If the one side just gave their thoughts and everyone else was able to just convince one person, then we would have an agreement, right? They would be able to do that. Of course, I'm speaking and making it seem like a utopia here, but theoretically it should be possible. And I think people should bank on that. And if you're not aware, V recently did a live stream while he was jogging. This was very cute because it was him sort of fulfilling a promise that he made with the community. Although he didn't actually physically promise anything, he basically said that he was going to be jogging, and if anyone wants to jog alongside with him, they're welcome to, but they cannot talk. And he laid out a bunch of rules during the previous live stream, and now it looks like he's fulfilling that by actually jogging and doing that. I mean, he quite literally gave the time and the location that he would be doing it, and I don't know if he actually had people show up at that time, but he had given that time and place, and the video showed him being fairly alone, and he was showing the scenery and all that stuff, and no one was really there either. Maybe no one showed up because I would say 100% of people thought he was joking and they didn't even bother to check that he was really there, or maybe he was in a really secluded area and people couldn't find him. But regardless, people really enjoyed the stream, and people had a really good time watching him do that jog and look perfect while doing it. But this allowed a lot of people to be really concerned for V and his safety, with a lot of people saying that obviously if anyone just shows up or someone tries to camp out in that location to eventually find him, they would, and he would be in danger. And of course, given the fact that there were no visible security members with him and he seemingly was jogging alone, and then there of course were a lot of people saying that it must be nice that he's a man and he doesn't feel uncomfortable being outside or alone in the dark. And I would say that that's a fear that obviously affects mostly women, but it's still a fear that affects men as well, just like way less, but especially men that are really famous, right? So hopefully he was taking some sort of precaution with that, and hopefully there were no crazy people that were there once he ended the stream, right? But I would imagine he likely lives nearby, or he has a driver that was nearby, so if anything were to happen, he'd be able to run to the driver and all that stuff. So I doubt he had just walked away from his apartment or home right into the park or riverside or wherever he was jogging completely alone. So I assume nowadays he definitely has some sort of protection on him because he knows how crazy the community can be. He does obviously trust the majority of the community, but there are of course people he cannot trust. And I see that all the time online where people are always like, oh, the boys can't trust us anymore. No, the boys are very much aware that the majority of the community is not crazy. But there are, of course, those really bad apples that exist. I mean, you can't control millions of people. Expect millions of people to just act as one unit. Like, obviously, there are going to be some people who do crazy things, but they know that that's not everybody. We also know that that's not everybody. We should know that that's not everybody. And he has a plan for those things. That doesn't mean he doesn't trust the community. That just means that he has to plan for those awful things to potentially happen. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Make sure you check out Patreon. I'll leave a link at the top of the description. Thank you so much for this lovely comment right here. Love you. Bye.